Don't you worry, the clip's about to begin, but don't forget to subscribe. Or else, don't make me turn this website around.
All right, Thomas from Virginia, you are live on Transatlantic. How can we help you?
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to get a little bit of advice, I guess. I work in like a retail environment as like a manager. And I recently like switched stores to a different store that I'm not used to, maybe 3 months ago. And I have a cashier there that is trans female, and you know, I'm a little bit sensitive to it, I guess. I don't, you know, like, I haven't educated myself like fully, but I try to be sensitive to these things. So I asked her, you know, what her preferred pronouns were. And things like that, just to make her more comfortable. And, you know, we've been working together for a few months, and she's a great person and everything like that. And like maybe a week ago, I like overheard like a couple of my coworkers like misgendering her. And I didn't know, like, I was just kind of like caught off guard and a little uncomfortable. And then, because usually I would say something in that instance, but, you know, I didn't know if they weren't sure or if they hadn't asked or, you know, those kind of things. So I'm just like, I guess, asking like when it's right to step out there, or like what I should do in that instance, I guess. So what your advice would be.
So I think
actually, wait, can I cut in first? Because I have, so actually, I love that you called in, Thomas, because this actually relates to a really important statistic that we see in the data for like the outcomes of trans healthcare. One of the statistically most impactful things in reducing suicidal symptoms and depressive symptoms and all the bad parts that come with dysphoria, or just like being trans in society generally, that's not even necessarily related to dysphoria. One of the most impactful things are employers and community leaders and parents who accept us and defend us. So you have a power to make a huge change, and I love that you've called. I definitely understand where you're coming from. Like, it can be kind of intimidating when there's a group of people misgendering someone to be like, how do I even go about this? Personally, I would recommend that you try to make it as much of a non-issue as possible, but like a correction, like as if someone was saying that she had green eyes when her eyes were brown. Just be like, oh, actually, it's she. And if they say some shit, you can be like, well, actually, it's she, because if you are gonna, you can't create a toxic work environment for my employees. It's she. If they give you shit, you can take it that far. But I think most of the time, if their boss comes up and says, actually, it's she, they're gonna go, right, she, sorry. Like, nobody's gonna be a fucking asshole to their boss like that. Well, I mean, I probably would, but that's why I'm self-employed. I think making it a non-issue, just a simple correction and walking away, leaving it there, that is the best thing you can do. Because that just kind of shows people that you are listening. And more importantly, it shows her that if people are going to like there's times when people misgender and it's genuinely an accident. In fact, I would say probably most of the time when people misgender, they're just unaware, they're ignorant more than anything. It's not malicious. But in the case where they could be malicious, knowing that you are on her side and that you're going to be there to say, actually, it's she, that's going to make a world's difference in like the outcome of her transition. So I think keep it simple. You don't have to make a big parade of virtue signaling that like, I am pro-trans. Just say, actually, it's she, and walk away. That's literally all you have to do.
Yeah, I totally agree with Arden. I can't really add much. I guess what I was going to say is, if it was a social setting where everyone's equals, that's exactly what I'd do. I'm not quite sure what it's like to be someone's boss. And I don't, if it's a small organization, it'd be very different to if it's a huge one like Walmart or something. But definitely just correcting them politely and just as if they've made a mistake. Oh, by the way, it's she. Anyway, but then, if it's persistent and they're causing a scene and it's a big company, then quite possibly there are things in place to deal with that. Maybe there'll be some kind of workplace training or something. And if it's a small company, that's maybe the most difficult situation, because you might need to be the one to set these to make a fuss, and then you might need to take it to your superior, and say, we need a policy. We don't want to be firing people just because they misgendered someone once, but we want a policy where if someone is creating a hostile work environment, then they need some kind of training or they need to have some kind of discipline. So yeah, I think that's probably all the options. But yeah, I basically disagree with Arden. Does that help at all?
Okay,
Thomas?
yeah, I like that. Yeah, that definitely helps. Yeah, for sure. And I'm like, I'm not everyone's boss at this place, and one of the people is my boss.
Not yet.
That was misgendering this person.
Okay.
Well, yeah, exactly. Not yet, but I'm actually studying to be a teacher, so I kind of want to get out of that profession. But it's like, I don't know. I just and it's not like they're misgendering her in front of her, because that's a totally different situation. I would always say something in that situation. It's just, it was kind of like, I didn't know, if I should, say that to my boss, because I would totally feel comfortable saying that to a customer or, like an employee that I'm in charge of. I would have no issue saying that, because I think, I work for a big company and we do have policies against these things. I wanted to kind of be delicate about it, but, at the same time, I like you guys say, if we don't like stand up, if we don't say something about it as like cis people, like other cis people, they're going to continue like this like line of thinking, like that guy from Canada earlier. No offense against him, but I just think he's like stuck in that line of thinking,
I think you've already said it. Like if there's a company policy, I think just kind of like sticking with like a mode of operations where it's like you can address it first by just the simple actually it's she. Even if it's your superior, I think that's okay. Like, because it could theoretically be coming from a place of ignorance. But if they like give you shit for it, they push back against you, or if they like are doing it consistently even after being corrected, I think that's when maybe you can appeal to like whatever process might exist. I don't have a lot of faith in major corporations to actually follow through on those policies, but at least you can know that you've done the right thing by like following that line of action.
Yeah, I think when like my workplace trainings always say, if there's an issue with your boss or you don't feel comfortable raising it with your boss, then talk to HR. And if it's a big company, you probably have an HR department. And maybe your direct HR manager also you don't feel comfortable and you have to tell their manager. It probably is worth doing something about this. And again, it probably is just worth saying something first because, quite a lot of this stuff as well can be just ignorance, but it can also just be this kind of, there's a culture of it. Like you get this thing where like, oh, of course, the manly thing to do is to misgender all the trans people. And then when just like, someone turns up and is like, no, that's not acceptable. Then everyone's like, oh, that's not acceptable. So now the manly thing is call out misgendering. And, I'm not saying it's all men, but it just kind of reminds me of that kind of bros thing where guys are sexist about women to each other. And then all it takes is one guy to say sexism isn't cool. And then they will just stop. And they weren't even necessarily doing it because they agreed with it. They just do it because it's the done thing. And misgendering trans people often is the done thing. And then when you're like, nah, mate, then it's just no longer the done thing. So, it's socially, it's worth putting a foot down. And yeah, I guess I would always say if you're like desperate for this job and you will be homeless without it, I totally understand if taking on your boss and it's a dangerous situation, like don't feel super, super guilty about not putting your livelihood on the line, but that's probably not the case for most people. And, doing something about it probably won't result in you losing your job or whatever. It is worth doing something is basically what I'm saying. Anyway, I hope that's helped.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's great advice, guys. I really appreciate that very much. It's like I wanted to get someone's perspective that had a little bit more skin in the game than me. I know I have skin in the game, but I feel like you guys like had a little bit of a better perspective. So I really appreciate it very much, and thank you for what you guys do. It's like I feel like maybe not everybody, but I feel like you are at least opening some people's eyes to like, the different possibilities of changing their mind and things like that. So thanks for what you guys do.
Thanks for
Awesome.
calling,
Thank you,
and
Thomas.
thanks for caring about your colleague and standing up for her.
Absolutely.
That makes such a big difference, knowing that someone has your back. Like, even if it's just like a colleague who, isn't even your manager or whatever, it really does. It makes more of a distance than you realise, I think. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no problem. Yeah,
All
what are
right.
we here for except to like protect and help each other? You guys have a good night.
Totally.
Bye.
You too, Thomas. Thanks again. Bye.
Bye-bye.
We're also here for thrash metal, but I'll take those first two as well. So.
Hey, thanks for checking out this clip for The Line. While you're here, hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and then share this with that bitter uncle of yours who loves talking about the good old days.